Welcome to Untamed Blossoms, the podcast where we celebrate the wild and beautiful journey of womanhood. We're here to create a space where women can connect, inspire, and uplift each other. Untamed Blossoms is more than just a podcast. It's a movement. It's a gathering of strong, fierce women who are breaking free from society's expectations.
Our mission is to deep dive into the stories of incredible women who have embraced their authenticity, even in the face of adversity. We believe by sharing these stories, we can inspire others to do the same. Join us as we sit down with women from all walks of life who have faced their own struggles and emerged as the most authentic versions of themselves. From entrepreneurs to artists, activists to adventurers, we'll explore their triumphs and tribulations. Together, we'll navigate the challenges of self-discovery, self-acceptance, and self-love.
But Untamed Blossoms is more than just conversations. We're a community that gathers for events, immerses ourselves in the beauty of nature, and supports one another in our personal and professional growth. So whether you're seeking inspiration, looking for a supportive sisterhood, or simply want to hear incredible stories of women blazing their own trails, Untamed Blossoms is here for you. Together, let's embrace our wildness, bloom unapologetically, and rewrite the rules. Welcome to Untamed Blossoms.
Welcome to Untamed Blossoms. We're grateful you're here. I'm your host, Amanda Riley.
And I'm Cristi Riley. Welcome to the pod.
It's November. Wild.
Yeah.
This year's flying by.
Completely flying. I can't believe how fast it's going. I absolutely am astounded when I look at the date all the time.
Someone said something about, well, that's when December, whatever. And I was like, yeah, December. Oh my God, that's next month.
Yes.
It's like, holy cow. Yeah. It's almost your birthday month.
It's almost my birthday month. And November for you and I, for Untamed Blossoms, is
big
month.
Big month.
We got a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, the party barn is getting a lot of action this month. So multiple family birthday parties. This becomes a crazy time of year that I try to wrangle on to some sanity around.
Mm-hmm.
I have come to force myself to like it. I don't love it. I don't love all of the craziness and the hustle and bustle, and that makes me sound like a terrible human. I don't. I'm like, I have turned into a Scrooge or something, but it's just not peaceful. And I think that's the best way I can describe it, is that I so enjoy when all of our families get together, as any family time that we have, and we play games and we eat and we have a great time. All of that I like. I love that time.
It's a logistical planning of how that's all going to happen.
Of how that's going to happen. It's the financial strain of it. All, just so you guys know, my poor husband, his girls and his wife all have birthdays within the holiday season. So from Thanksgiving until Christmas, not only those holidays and all of the gift giving, buying and things, but his wife and both of his daughters have birthdays in that time span as well. Yeah. So for him, it's like the gauntlet of just events, and it's expensive, These things are expensive when you throw parties for teens, and and just to have our family over and feed everybody, it just comes with a certain, not that our family isn't very well equipped and offers often to bring all the things. What can we bring? They're amazing that way.
Right.
But I find that stressful. I don't know why, but it stresses me out a little bit. And feeling like you've done enough, and I'm sure that's something within me that I feel like I'm not doing enough for people, or are they going to have a good experience? And I've had to sit with that the last couple of Christmases to decide what that is, because it's clearly a me issue. It's not.
Well, there's a lot of expectations. Yeah. That's just in general. There's so much to live up to, so much to do, and I find myself as the only girl with two brothers, and they both have families,
right?
And I'm married into a family. The not wanting to disappoint anyone and making dates and times work with a bunch of people who also have children and also then have additional it just becomes very sensitive.
It's a lot. I mean, we
Yeah.
have this issue for Thanksgiving, right? Like planning Thanksgiving became a cluster to any other words and miscommunication and like where are we having it, who's coming, what date, like and
what type of food,
what type of food, like all the things. And so yeah, it gets really convoluted, especially with us being a blended family and having exes and schedules and sharing and multiple families that we have to deal with that aren't even really a part of your celebration, right? That's
right.
Like not necessarily my parents would come to that. All they have their own, and
right.
it's just there's just a lot of moves and moving pieces. At the end of the day, we're all just doing our best during the holidays, and that's kind of what we're doing our circle around.
Yep.
So our women's circle
on the 17th.
On November 17th, we'll be talking about your communication style to help you at those times where all of the most triggering people in your life are surrounding you, and how you can navigate that better by understanding yourself better. So
I'll give you all a little sneak peek of what to expect. So I was chatting with Sarah, obviously that's who is doing our workshops, and I offered to help run a piece of it. Communication was my major, kind of what I did for my job, right? So she wanted to know if I wanted to help with an activity. And she sent me a little blurb about my communication. And so if you know me, like in a work sense, I love doing events and projects. I'm very detail oriented. What I fucking hate is when people tell me a story with every detail. I'm like, Jesus, I do not care. I'm so sorry. I might love this person with my whole heart. When people trap me, and are like, oh my gosh, I'm going to tell you about this thing. Let me start back the day I was born. I immediately start to internally panic so hard. And I'll be damned if that is not in my design. I should have known, but it is there. And I didn't look too much, like we didn't go too far into it by any means, but it was just funny when I saw that immediately. I was like, yep, that tracks. But I think it's good to know, and I hope this, class helps everyone else too. It's good to know and to pick up on other people's communication and be mindful of yours.
Right. Or you can say, hey, based on my design, this is what I learned about myself.
Yeah.
So if I'm not paying attention, or if I cut you off, or if I just know I'm internally freaking out.
Yeah.
And I need an out.
Yeah.
And if you know that about me, then we can communicate in a different way that doesn't make you feel like, man, she's not listening, or she's cut me off, or she doesn't care about me, or whatever. We can internally dialogue about the other person's behavior that most likely had nothing to do with any of that. So I think it's going to be an interesting.
Yeah.
And she's going to teach us how to find it in other people's charts too. So you can kind of know, even if other people don't know, what you're kind of up against.
Yeah.
With your parents or your siblings, or, the uncle that always wants to talk about things that piss you off, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
Right? So, it should be a cool workshop. Yeah.
And we each have a gift and we each have a shadow within our communication, which I learned.
Right.
And I think that's a beautiful thing to learn about yourself too, is yes, there's some things like me with the details that are brutal, but then there's another thing that I have within my communication style that's a gift. And leaning into that and understanding that, I think will be really awesome. So I'm excited.
Sarah does a beautiful job of teaching us how to integrate all of those together. So we're living with both sides in the middle. Our topic today,
is an exciting one.
Is about sobriety.
Yes.
Yeah, and you are trekking up on your 2-year anniversary, which is fantastic.
Thank you. November 7th.
Woohoo!
Wild. I can not believe it's been 2 full years. I feel like it was just yesterday.
And we've talked about your sobriety before.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you that I have experienced in the last 2 years watching you a whole different human.
Yeah.
A whole different human. Like, you are more present, you are more engaged, you are more, and not just when you're drinking. I was around when you weren't.
Right.
It's not like this is because you were drunk all day, every day. You weren't. You were functioning normal person during the day.
Yeah.
But the lasting effects of that were still in place, right? And so your brightness is different, your light is different. I feel like you have regressed your age by 10 years. Like you look way younger. Like it's just all the things. Like you could just watch the poison leaving your body and all this light emerging.
Thank you. Thank you. This is going to be awkward for me. I just realized this whole time, listening to nice things, but I really wanted to do an episode around sobriety where you interview me and my experience with it because two reasons. One, I feel like there's a certain picture that is painted of someone that's recovering, especially from alcohol. And there is a very mainstream idea of what that looks like and what it takes and how your life was and will be. And I don't think I necessarily fit that mold. But two, we have an awesome dance party event coming up on the 22nd, and it's going to be a sober event and being alcohol free, right? And I think it's really important to remind people that you can still have so much fun and not poison yourself. You can have so much fun. And I'm going to be I'm not judgmental of whatever anyone wants to do, to be very, very clear. But I'm not going to sugarcoat how I feel about alcohol in this episode because I normally do in way to not offend. So if you're not ready to listen to this right now, come back to it later. Fine. But I'm definitely not going to hold back on my real life experiences. And it has nothing to do with judgment of you if you still drink. But I'm just going to be truthful. So
I think that's powerful. That's all we can do. And it's not about them. It's about you.
Right.
You know, this experience is all about you.
Yeah.
So you're not targeting this towards anybody. It's your own personal experience. And what and how you've navigated that. So let's start. Okay. Let's start by you, if nobody's listening, because we've talked about your sobriety on multiple episodes. But let's talk about, give everybody sort of a quick overview on, why you think you got started on your alcohol journey and kind of where that took you and lead us down the road.
Yeah, so it's interesting. In high school, I maybe drank a handful of times, right? I was way too busy to be getting in too much trouble. My mom made sure of that. So, I was in indoor track, outdoor track, every club, musicals, choirs, orchestra. Like I just was really, really busy. So that was never something that enticed me very much, right? And so I did drink with my friends a few times, wine coolers, like one party, I think, where I actually drank a lot. Did not end well, but it never was like on the forefront of my mind.
Yeah.
Then I went to college and I started off as a biology major and went there for track to throw shot put and play violin. And I'm going to say within like a month, I had quit violin. I had quit track and I knew I was going to join a sorority. And I just wanted to have fun. All I wanted to do was just let loose and not have responsibilities, not have to get up and go to a violin recital. Like I didn't want to do any of that. I just wanted to let loose. So, play the tape forward. Had the best time in college. I don't think anyone had more fun than I had in college. One Kappa killer 2 years in a row. Won cuffs and cases, parties, chugging beer. Found out pretty quick that I am not a lightweight, and that should have been a sign, but it wasn't. I could drink a lot of beer. I impressed a lot of people with my beer drinking abilities, and I was not cool in high school, but I definitely wasn't popular. And I will say partying and being one of the guys was a brand I had, and I was fun. I was Rowdy Riley and it was fun and I never caused any significant drama when I was drinking. It was just a good time every time. A lot of bruises from falling off tables. Other than that, it was just a way for me to experience my independence and not worry so much.
And I would say not much different from most college kids.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
That's a typical college experience.
Yeah, totally.
A lot of binge drinking in college. It's very much what we expect of them at this point. So fast forward. Yeah. So then you're out of college, you go into the workforce.
Yep. And, originally I started off working for my brother after an internship at 10 TV. And I was super bummed during the recession, 2008, no jobs.
Yeah.
And I was working for him, downtown arena. And right across the road were the bars.
Right.
I was living in Grandview. Again, continuation of college. It was not much different. Living in a very tiny space.
Right.
Going to bars and getting parking tickets every single night because I wouldn't pick up my car till the next day, so I went to work.
Right.
And I would say this is when I started to realize I did not have any interest in slowing down drinking whatsoever at all. And a lot of my friendships were aligned with people who like to drink and go out. And I just felt like this was my way to continue having the most fun and not feeling super tied down to anything or anyone. So I met my ex-husband, started working for corporate America, and I was not the person that was like, oh, sorry guys, I drank last night. I can't go to work. I can't go on that hike. My ass was up.
Yeah.
Did not matter. Would go to work drunk still. No one knew. No one knew. I can remember picking up one of my friends after New Year's Eve and we had to work New Year's Day and we were getting so sick on the way to work and stopped at McDonald's. I never let a hangover or drinking ever stop me from doing anything.
Yeah.
And I just think that gave an impression that I did not drink as much as I did, or that it didn't matter because nothing changed. I worked my ass off. I got 1.5 MBAs. I graduated with my first MBA degree. And then started on a second one before Verizon closed. And I worked from an online customer service rep to a senior manager of technical support in 10 years.
Right.
Less than that. So it never stopped me, it never hindered me. But as pressure built with my career and my job, it got worse and worse and worse. And I used alcohol to escape a lot of that pressure that I would feel to perform or to achieve.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. How does what you know now about your human design, when you look back at your drinking now, what do you feel like was really happening?
Oh, I was totally avoiding my gut knowing, my sacral knowing that I was not supposed to be doing this job.
No.
I was not aligned to working in such an environment. And at Verizon, I wouldn't say it was horrible either, though. I really loved it. I made some fantastic friendships. And I really thought I loved what I was doing because I did a lot. I followed my human design in the way that I had 50 different roles at Verizon.
Right.
And I love that variety until I left to go to a different company and it was incredibly high pressure. I was drinking bottles of wine a night because I knew immediately that was not for me. I didn't stay in that very long. I was only there for about 8 months before I left. But I know now, looking back, I was just not listening to my gut. I was just completely avoiding having the tough conversation with myself. Because, by the way, I made immediately $30,000 more from leaving Verizon and going to another company.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to think about leaving such a lucrative position.
Right.
And so that's where I just really, really kicked up and started drinking a ton of wine.
Yeah.
So.
Was your self-worth wrapped up in that story?
Yeah, totally. At that time, the year I left Verizon was the year I got divorced, was earlier that year. I met Noah later that year. I had fallen and knocked out my 4 front teeth. I was someone who facilitated trainings and everything else. So being in front of people with a mouth injury was horrific. I was going through a divorce. I already felt very fragile about failing.
Yeah.
And so I'm starting this new job. I'm getting paid more. I have a new relationship. Well, I can't fail any of these things.
Right.
And people loved reporting to me. People still do love reporting to me because I really desperately care about my employees. And so the thought of letting them down or them not having a boss like me completely kept me hostage in those situations.
Yeah.
So,
which only continued the drinking pattern.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I went to a startup where everyone was down to have fun. Every time we would go out, and I would plan these outings. I was the one who planned them. We would go out.
Yeah.
And I
let off steam, right? In the corporate world, you go and you let off steam, right? But
let
that
off
just
steam.
Means that you get as intoxicated as you allow yourself to get, depending on who you are, right?
Right.
Like some people are like, oh, we've all been there, right? Anybody who's gone to any corporate American Christmas party understands the risk.
When it was so different for me because at Verizon, I would have never.
Yeah.
At Verizon, I think I maybe would have had one glass of wine, one beer. Matter of fact, I never went to a corporate event and drank more than one drink until the last event that we were already let go. Our center had already closed. Doesn't matter. Even then, I was one of the most sober ones because I was terrified.
Right.
At a startup, though, that culture is so different.
Right.
And when I would want to get really drunk, I would break off with a group of people that I trusted and we would go let loose.
Right.
Again, though, I was one of those people who I wasn't being violent or wasn't like throwing up at the bar, you know what I mean? And so it just gave me this weird permission to keep it going.
Yeah.
So
what was, if any, was there a precipitating event? Was there a dark night of the soul? Like, where did you land where you were like, okay, I need to be done with this. This is not certain.
So
because I think nobody would have looked at you and said, Amanda Riley is an alcoholic.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
We could probably look back and possibly say a functional alcoholic. You were definitely using alcohol to medicate.
Right.
Right. But like you said, went to work every day, never let a hangover stop you from doing anything with friends, going to work, like you just powered through it.
Yeah. Some
of that is your youth, right? It's way easier to do that when you're young than it does start to be in your 30s, right? Like where you're like, oh, I'm just hanging on a little longer than I used to, or I feel a lot worse than I used to. So was there a precipitating event or a moment where you just knew that this wasn't serving you?
Yeah, I think I can pinpoint 3 events, right? Like kind of in succession that made me think about it. And I know I shared a little bit of this on Brittany's episode about recovery, so I won't go too deep into it. But before that main event with her, there was actually a preceding event where she had given up drinking for a little bit. Right. And she met me at Untamed Brewing Company, and I was having a beer, and she had given it up for a while. And I was like, do you want a beer? Like, you've given it up for a while. Like, are you done, like, basically with this? Like,
yeah.
Because I think, and I can get into this later, but you never want to tell someone you're done drinking when you're done drinking. Because you, A, have no idea if you're going to be able to do it. Yeah. And 2, you just are so fearful of the forever thought that you can't even comprehend a life that you're saying, I will forever be done with this. Today, I will say I'm forever done with this. Month 1, even almost the whole year of 1, you're thinking, can I do this forever? So I'll take responsibility. It doesn't matter if I knew or I didn't know. I should not have said, why don't you get a beer? How long are you going to do this? Like, looking back, that was a shitty thing for me to do. And the smallest of defense, though, it never occurred to me. I thought she was taking a break. Right. So she had a beer.
Yeah, you weren't on she's got a real problem and she has gone to recovery and she is in recovery. Like, that's not where you were. She's just taking a hiatus.
That's what I thought.
The dry January?
Yeah, she did it after an event. Like, I forget what it was. And
people take a break for multiple reasons.
I had taken breaks many times. So I never, but I think about that day a lot because I saw the hesitation And I remember her saying, my mom's going to be disappointed in me. And I should have, instead of wanting a drinking buddy back, I should have been a little bit more in tune. I wasn't ready to see that. That was a mirror for me that I was not ready to look into. Yeah. Because if she still wants to not be drinking, what the hell am I doing drinking? Yeah. So that wasn't even, but it is a thing that was stuck with me after that. Yeah. So then fast forward to the big event, but still not the final event, was when she did quit drinking. She was like, I'm not drinking. I don't know how long, but I'm not. Like, it was much more serious, right? And I'm like, okay, cool. I was a much better friend the second time around. I took her on sober dates. We went kayaking together. There were times where I still invited her to everything per her request, but I also made a big effort to do things that were not alcohol related with her. Right. And we went to Taco Fest. I had a bunch of Cutwaters with no food in my stomach. Those things are like fucking 1,000,000%. I don't even know. Right. I black out so fast. And I had probably been with her for 5 hours after the point of the last thing I remember. And I don't remember a single thing of it. And I remember waking up being like, oh my God, there's so much of my night I can't even recall. I remember it being dark and going to, I don't remember the name of the bar, it doesn't matter, vaguely, but I think we got to Taco Fest at noon. Yeah. It was still very much daylight when we left. Right. I don't remember getting to our vehicle, and she was sober. Yeah. That's the part that's scary, is if you do that with someone else who's also drinking, you have a good laugh, whether you should or not, and think, wow, what did we do? Dude, where's my car style? But no, she was aware. And I thought, how miserable was that time? So from there, I took a break for a month. So that was like all of June. I had a bachelorette party in July. I drank. August, I drank a little bit. September. Then October, I got married. Right. I really didn't drink very much at my wedding. Yeah. I didn't really drink much the night before either. I actually had a margarita ordered for me. I drank maybe less than a half of it, right? Yeah. And
it wasn't a huge drinking event. Nobody got really carried away.
Right. Yeah. I'm telling you, that morning after I woke up after Taco Fest, not remembering that changed me. And so I never really drank the same way again. But I went to Vegas for my friend's bachelorette party. And I was Amanda Riley in Vegas. Right. And I did not get tore up. Yeah. And I started thinking, like, this is interesting. However, her wedding happened, and that was not what happened. I drank a lot of French 75s. I never had them before. It's like basically gin and champagne, right, whatever else is in there. And when that ran out, that was a signature cocktail, I switched to red wine. Oh boy. I do not remember leaving. Of course, I wake up the next day. I text her. Nothing happened, right? It's fine. But I was violently hungover. I thought, do I need to go to the emergency room? Like, I was just laying there. I thought, why am I wasting my literal life by spending any seconds of it hungover? Yeah. This is crazy that I am not able to even keep down water right now. Yeah. Like, my body is begging me to stop. Because what you said earlier, like, as you get older, it gets harder. It had been getting harder for me. Yeah. But I was so dedicated to being the friend that you could rely on, you could count on, that it didn't matter how brutal I was. I would chug some pickle juice, take some ibuprofen, and go out the door. Right. Did not care. Yeah. But this was like, when I think about it, I kind of get a headache thinking about how hard my head hurt and how I thought I was pulling a muscle or something because I was getting sick so hard that, like, I was seeing stars. Yeah. And I just thought, this will be the last day I'm ever hungover. Yeah.
What you were experiencing, love, is alcohol poisoning.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
1,000% you were experiencing alcohol poisoning. You could have gone to the ER and they probably would have pumped you full of fluids, which is the only thing that would have made you feel better. It's just you're so dehydrated.
Right.
your body's just trying to flush everything out. Well, as it flushes everything out, you get so severely dehydrated that you're sick and you got a headache and all the things, right? So that's absolutely what you're experiencing, and that's scary. I can only imagine how scary that was. I had that one time when it was tequila, and it took me 20 years before I could put tequila to my lips again after that day. So it was, I understand. It was brutal.
So brutal. Scary. It's so scary. And then what's so interesting though is like once you tell yourself like in your head, like, no, I'm for real done. I can remember, it's going to make me emotional. I can remember every single thing about that November, December, January, because every day it's like you wake up and you're like, I don't drink. I am a non-drinker. That's what I kept saying. Like, I'm not sober because that's like a commitment of a word. But I am a non-drinker right now. And I cocooned. I learned to crochet.
So one of your first steps, because you didn't do any sort of AA or any sort of program, right? Like you opted against that, mostly because you're a spiritual person, you're not a religious person, and you didn't really identify with the religious part of that. Yeah. So your first step, and you kind of blew past it, was you didn't want to identify as, like, that was too much of a commitment. Right?
Way too much.
I'm a non-drinker. This is this. So you gave yourself a title that you felt comfortable with in that moment. And then how did you have to hold that up every single day? Like, what did that take? Was that enough just to verbally?
No. No, because then, after a week where you're no longer thinking about how miserable that hangover was, you think, I just overdid it. So for me, personally, I would say like 4 days in, I thought I have to do something to educate myself because I am too prideful. And once I know something, I'm not going to go back. Like, I don't go back to things that I know.
Yeah.
Right? Once I know better.
Right.
Patterns, whole different podcast. But behaviors.
Yeah. And
so I scoured the internet for tools that were not AA or meetings because I also didn't know if I was going to be sober forever.
Yeah.
But I thought, let me learn about this. So I, thank God, found a podcast called Seltzer Squad. And they were two crazy ass party girls who are now sober and trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And their podcast, I started from the beginning, was messy. It was like 30 minutes long. You know what I mean? They're just trying to figure it out. But I binge consumed it. Every second I could, I listened to it, which is one of the huge driving factors of me wanting to do our podcast and wanting to continue talking about this topic is there wasn't many people I could relate to when I searched for a podcast about this because I wasn't going to AA.
Right.
I wasn't a mom who wanted to do better for my kids.
Right.
I wasn't any of those things.
Right.
I was someone who had a really fun time and was struggling thinking that I would never have a fun time ever again. And listening to these two women talk about their experiences and what they did or didn't do and how they got through it literally saved me from ever drinking again because I just kept listening. And then I read some books based upon that podcast, recommendations. And one of those was A Naked Mind. And I will say, if you have any interest in ever stopping drinking, that is the book because it encourages you to drink while you're reading it until you've learned something that prompts you to say, no, thank you.
No, thank you.
That book is incredible.
Yeah.
So
it's like a 12-step program in and of itself in the book, right?
Yeah, totally. It gives you like things to do, things not to do, steps to take. And
meanwhile, you were getting in your body. Meanwhile, you were getting back into your body.
Yeah.
I mean, not that you'd ever really been out of your body, but there is a disconnect that happens with drinking that we talk about.
Right.
That you really are taking your mind out of your body, right? Like,
totally.
Blacking out, you're not in your body. So staying in your body when you're triggered, and what were your big triggers that you continued to work through?
It was a big blessing that I did this in November, I will say, because we do family things for holidays. my ex-husband and his family, we used to do big wine things. That would have been very hard. Noah's family is not like that. Of course they have drinks, but it's not like that was.
Right.
My family, we don't really, it's not the center of anything
Right.
for the holidays. So I remember sitting my ass in a adult onesie, learning how to crochet, just sitting there, keeping my hands busy.
Yeah.
Just being like, all right, you're learning this right now, so that's fun. And so November, December, and January were just a lot of, I'm not going outside. I'm treating, like they said in the podcast, I'm treating myself like a little baby. And I ate whatever I wanted to eat. I did whatever made me happy. And if it was bad, I went to sleep. Like I just went to sleep.
Yeah.
And woke back up the next day.
Yeah.
And the first, I would say, triggering event that ended up not being triggering, but I thought was going to be, was our trip to Florida in February. Right. I ordered probably $300 worth of NA product and shipped it to Florida to be there when I arrived. So I had options.
Right.
Because I was terrified of that first sober vacation.
Right.
So.
Right. I bet you got through it and ended up not being triggering at all.
It was totally fine. Turns out, a lot of times I found out that I was the problem. Like when I would go hang out with people or go visit people and I was worried about how much we were going to drink, I realized maybe we all drank so much or did these things because you always wanted to drink and do these things.
Got you.
You were the one that had the energy to go up and go out and do all these things and stay up late. No one else wants to do that.
Yeah.
That was you.
Yeah.
And when I don't want to do that, turns out no one else really does either.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
You were driving that bus all along and you didn't realize.
Whole time.
Yeah.
So.
And so other than getting into your body, were there any other things that sort of helped you get through those initial, like, how close did you come? Like,
Yeah.
After I'm absolutely done.
Yeah.
Was there a moment where that you can identify where you're like, I had a drink, poured it in my hand and was like, I'm gonna, or did it ever, were you able to just mentally just keep yourself motivated enough that it never got to that?
No, because I do this thing where I suddenly make things my whole personality, right? So at one point, I was like, well, not only am I sober, I'm helping other people get sober. The beautiful thing is, though, I have.
Yeah.
I know 2 people specifically that for sure I have, and then many others who have reached out to me who have tried, who maybe haven't succeeded, but I know for a fact that I was able to help other people. And for me, and I think also my human design, teaching using my voice turned that corner for me of I'm never going back, because now I'm responsible to help other people get sober. So whether that's right or wrong, or my codependency speaking, I don't know. But knowing that I had a hand in other people's sobriety, I started the Sober Besties Instagram page with Brittany, giving those resources, reading Matthew Perry's book. Like, I just kept educating myself so that it was never like that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to say there still hasn't been times where I've been sitting here dying for a glass of wine.
Right.
That has happened.
Yeah.
Or I thought no one would even know.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really last very long with me. Thank God.
Yeah.
Because some people, that's not the case.
Right.
For me, I can talk myself in or out of many things.
Yeah.
Turns out. So that never happened.
I've also been going to bed if I feel
like, yeah,
that I'm so edgy and I just want to unwind. Or,
yeah.
And mushrooms have helped me a ton.
Totally.
So not just medicinal mushrooms, which we microdose this too occasionally, but I have this golden turmeric reishi mushroom tea at night, and so it usually takes me right down a notch to where I'm like, where you're just looking for that little bit of edge to be off if you're upset about something or anxious or brain spinning, which I know that doesn't happen to you often, but the rest of us it does. So like that's it, that's those moments where I find like I still drink, and socially, like I love cocktails. I'm a foodie, and I love complex cocktails, like really good ones. Yeah, it's something that is part of my foodie experience, right? Like if you go there and I don't want to get drunk. Right. I really want to experience what the flavors are of the cocktails, and can I pick out all the ingredients? And
Right.
You know, it's a weird thing. And so that's probably one of my biggest things is not being able, I don't want the effects of alcohol in my system, but I still love that experience. Of tasting them.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest thing I miss about alcohol these days.
I think there's also a twofold thing in what you just said. One, I think creating rituals for yourself in sobriety is really important. I would have never drank tea in my life because, first of all, it was coffee, water, or booze.
Right.
Those are my 3 food groups. That's actually my pyramid of food.
Right.
Caffeine, booze, water.
Yeah.
Stay alive.
In that order.
Yeah.
Yes. Mostly.
Mostly. So tea, I was like, I will not ever drink that. For what? For what do I need that for?
Right.
But part of my ritual experience, I started getting really fancy teas. Harvey and Son, I think I'll link it in the bio or the show notes because they have some of the coolest, most complex teas. I got a loose leaf tea thing. Like I just went really hard about tea.
Yeah.
And I would get dried oranges and like make these super beautiful, just wonderful teas. And that would be my nighttime ritual. I would do a face mask. I would do a little face roller. Like I made it so when I was getting sleepy or when I was laying there in the evening desperately wanting wine, I didn't have time to think about it because I had a ritual to start.
Right.
Can't even think about wine when you have a 2-hour before you go to bed ritual you have to complete.
Right.
So that was really important.
It's all self-care, right? Like you were
totally.
It was all energy directed itself too. So.
Absolutely. Which is the opposite of what alcohol does.
Right. What a healing thing to do for yourself. That's great advice.
And then I think there's this whole other part of what you said too that I really think is changing, which is there are adaptogens. There are all these amazing spirits that are non-alcoholic, that are complex and earthy. And I know the Better Bev lady, she has a lot of these, and she
let us sample one for your Halloween party. It's great.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
There are so many ways that we can make craft cocktails better for us.
Right.
Like she says, you have options. We have options. And It's about forcing the hands of those people in the industry to say, I don't want this shitty, sugary Kool-Aid mocktail.
Right.
Be creative.
Right. Give me a real one.
Give me a real mocktail. With adaptogens and everything else. And I want you to be creative.
With real NA booze.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I think the more people that choose sobriety, the more pressure that's going to put on.
I get excited when I go to a place that has real mocktail.
Same.
Yeah, same. And not just like, we're just going to take the alcohol, then give you a bunch of sugar. Shit.
Right.
Because when you take the alcohol, turns out it changes the profile. Shocker, I didn't want a Shirley Temple. I wanted a mocktail.
Yep.
And those are two different things. So one thing that someone said to you or did for you in those first few months that was the most impactful, right? So I think you had an experience where you didn't handle it great with Brittany the first time around because you weren't in the mindset of her really being serious about quitting, right? Like you guys were party friends, you were drinking, you were hanging out, like you girls partied like rock stars, had great times all the time.
Yep.
If she was in, you were in. If you were in, she was in. Like that was the relationship that you had, right? And so of course you weren't thinking this was forever.
Right.
She was just taking a break. Okay, well, when's it going to be over? Like, when can we get back to it, girl? Come on.
Right.
You're my ride or die. We're partying here. What's happening, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people can relate to that. But so you can look at that in retrospect. But once you decided to really be done, what are some things that people have said to you that were helpful? And on this flip side, what did you hear from people that you were like, wow?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm going to start off with the negative because this is something that people still ask of me, and I would never have the guts to say it to them in person. So I just hope they all listen to this episode. Please do not ask me if this is a forever thing, or so you're still sober. How long? Like, are you eventually going to drink again? Is this a forever thing? It's not helpful. Yeah. It's not helpful, and what it says to me, and I'm sure this is not the intention, because lovely people I care about so much have said this to me, which is why I would never say it to their face. I know it's not their intention, but I'm trying to be very, very vulnerable right now. It says to me that you prefer me when I'm drinking.
Right.
Because if you didn't, I, again, know this probably is not their intention. In my mind, if you didn't prefer me when I was drinking, why do you care?
Yeah.
What's the point?
Are you wanting Roddy Riley back?
Right.
Yeah. Is that who you liked and you counted on in these
right.
settings to bring the heat, right? Like
right.
the party and the fun and the, you know, and that now that you're hearing that they miss that version of you.
Right.
And
do you miss the chaos?
Or they don't like this version.
Right.
The real version.
Yeah. And, you know, I know people have said, well, that's not true. You're still so funny. You still get to go out. You do all these things. But at the end of the day, I'm not throwing a banger every other weekend. I'm not the person you can call to go get a drink all the time. I'm not the person who's going to... A huge shift that's happened within me is I am focusing way more on my passions. And I think that makes it harder when you have people that have relied on you to be the party starter. When you're like, now I'm so busy making my dreams come true, I can't meet you at a dark, dingy bar for 5 hours because I have stuff to get done.
Right.
And people don't love that. So I would just say that's the one thing that's not been helpful ever, and that I literally still get all the time. And I just wish no one would ever ask anyone that's taking even a break, even if they have a deadline. Just don't. There's no reason to ask.
Right.
Unless you yourself are thinking about sobriety and you want some guidance or some help, you can still frame that question differently. Don't ask someone if they're really seriously never going to drink again. It's not helpful.
Yeah.
The most helpful things, and this is just, again, trying to be so vulnerable, is placating to my vanity, because everyone that has said, wow, your skin looks better, like you look like you reversed age, all those things are helpful for me, because unfortunately I've always been a victim of doing whatever I can in my body to feel comfortable and confident. And I have been able to change everything about how I look while not starving myself for once ever.
Right.
And it feels so healing to not do these horrible things to my body by not doing another horrible thing to my body.
Right.
And so when people comment, I'm not saying like, of course I've lost a lot of weight since I stopped drinking, but just in general, anything about my physical appearance is very helpful for me, because I'm not doing anything fucking crazy to get here. I'm just not poisoning myself. So that's very, very helpful to me personally. Everyone else will be different. I still do whatever anyone wants me to do. I still go to concerts. I still go wherever, do whatever. I'll have fun wherever I go.
Yeah.
I don't need people to rearrange, because to me, once people start getting hammered where I'm at, it's a good thing for me.
Yeah.
Because it's reaffirming that I don't ever want to be like that again.
Yeah.
So it's not triggering.
It's not triggering.
Yeah.
Maybe for others, right?
100%.
That's 100% where you are, like you've made peace with all of it, and you're like,
yeah,
don't want to be like that.
Right.
So glad that's not going to be me tomorrow.
Totally.
Yes. Yeah, so it's affirming for you, for them to just continue on.
Yeah.
If they're curious, great. If they're interested in joining you, great.
Yeah.
If not, party on.
The hardest thing is monitoring your drinking. The hardest thing is, when you are that type of person, is to say, I'm going to moderate. No, you won't. It's so much harder to moderate than it is just to not.
Yeah.
And that is one thing that I would have never understood until I got sober. For most people, some people just always moderate, and that's fine. Live your life. Great.
Right.
Cool.
Right.
But for those of you who drink a lot and then want to not drink a lot, moderation is never going to work out. So.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to talk on a bit about your relationships before and after drinking.
Yeah.
It is my personal opinion that, the contracts change.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just what you're afraid of, right? When somebody says, is this going to be forever? Are you done yet?
Yeah.
I'm missing my party friends.
Yeah.
You change the contract on them, right?
Yeah.
Like they had a party contract with you, possibly, and that's the part of you that was giving them permission to drink the way they're drinking, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you got a friend that's doing it with you, we're all good.
Yep.
It makes you feel better. Part of your awakening was somebody stepping out of that and not being a part of it, and you becoming so blackout drunk that you felt terrible for her, that you put her through that experience as a newly sober person, right? And having to deal with your drunk ass all night,
right?
God knows what, as a blackout in a blackout state, right? And she's too good of a friend to have left you in any abandoned state. Like, she's going to stick with you because she's your ride or die.
Yep.
So, talk about. I think it's an interesting thing, that I know in AA and some of these programs that they force you away from people. Right? Yeah. They force you away from people that were your drinking friends and your druggy friends. Like, you have to remove yourself from them because it's too much of a temptation to be in that same circle. And, it's a lot of strength that you're showing to be able to be with people still drinking and still in that environment that you would have partaken before. You choose not to now, or you choose to do something different now. But I think that's an unusual place for people to be in that's had a problem.
But it's also interesting because what I found out is it wasn't about the other people drinking or not drinking. Now that I got sober, it was I found out I couldn't stand certain people. I was like, I have been so drunk this whole time. I had no idea I did not like you. Yeah. It never occurred to me. I mean, I don't dislike many people, I will say.
Right.
So I'm not saying like I hated them or I'm like, oh, they're awful. What I'm saying though is there were a massive amount of people, not my dear close friends, of course. I really didn't lose anybody in that manner. But a lot of people I spent a decent amount of time with, I just realized we have nothing in common.
Yeah.
It was brutal to be around them sober, not because they were drinking or not. It had nothing to do with drinking. It was because I didn't even really like them.
Yeah.
I didn't like their personality. I thought they were incredibly judgy. I'm someone who...
You just started to see them for who they really were.
Yeah, and I was just like...
unfiltered sense, and you're like,
whoa.
No, thank you. Yeah.
So that was, I would say, the biggest change. I didn't lose any deep, close, meaningful relationships because I'm not drinking, thank goodness. I had lovely people who were and still are by my side, but a lot of fringe friendships that just had to go because I was like, no. What was I thinking?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then now the friends that I do have that have come into my life that are new friends in my sobriety are freaking amazing, are unbelievable. I have strengthened friendships with people that I considered acquaintances before now that I'm sober because I have a deeper connection with them. I can have a deeper connection with them. So I promise you,
your connection with yourself.
100%. When you know you better,
yeah,
it's easier to align that with the people you're around. And I promise you, the biggest worry always of getting sober is I'm not going to have any friends. And I understand how scary that thought is because I really hardcore went through it, but I promise you, you will lose no one that's meant to be in your life. You won't. You just won't.
Yeah.
And it might feel like that at the time, but it will make space for the right people.
Yeah. And the relationships that do survive all of that.
Yeah.
Will be so much better than they were in before.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about your spirituality throughout this process. Was there anything that kind of higher power throughout this that you've evolved and developed or was aware of or not aware of? Was there any sort of spirituality? I mean, I know that you're very witchy and, you have a lot of woo-woo things that you love. We use that term lovingly, of course.
Yeah.
But talk about your spiritual path, like you didn't identify with the AA because of its kind of Christian background, not really your thing.
Right.
So talk about a little bit about spirituality through this whole thing.
I would say my higher power. So I do believe to stay sober, you have to connect with something bigger than you. That is a theme. That's why AA is so successful because it's not about you. It's about a higher power. As corny as this may or may not sound, for me, that was nature. Like realizing that everything's connected, learning about mushrooms and mycelium networks and water and really taking time to walk in trees and I now can have direct recalls to certain songs to when I was listening to them walking through a trail, right? Connecting with nature was my higher power, and understanding that I didn't know anything about myself or about my connectedness to everything around me was huge in staying on that path. I would have never meditated or done yoga or listened to affirmations because none of those were hardcore enough for me before.
Yeah.
I just talked to one of my coworkers about this the other day. Like, I would have never wanted to do any of those things because it wasn't like a hardcore gym hit workout. Like, I was so focused on like just this crazy fast aggressiveness that when I started like paying attention to the connectivity of the universe and nature, I was able to slow that down and then really reap the benefits of meditation and my yoga practice. And a lot of meditation for me is walking.
Yeah.
And that changed everything for me.
Yeah.
So
it was a game changer for me when I realized that I can't sustain, and that meditation comes in a whole bunch of forms.
Yep.
And that walking meditation is a thing, and you could meditate while you're doing your daily activities. And so if you are mindfully folding the laundry every morning, that's a meditation. If you're present and mindful and grateful in that moment, so that changed a lot for me because I was like, I suck at this. Like, I can't sit here for very long. I'm fidgety as hell.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't, stay in that. But I'm so much better in nature. We're so aligned in that way, and that nature is for sure my higher power. And I see God in literally everything and everybody.
Yeah.
I think that God lives amongst us, and that's our connectivity. And so I totally agree with that. And getting out into nature is just something literally magical. Having time at the farm has been, watching it go through fall has been a spiritual thing in and of itself. I walk outside. I literally talk like a crazy person. If my neighbors at all are listening, when they're outside, I sound like a crazy, insane person because I'm like, "Good morning, Lucy." That's the big spruce tree in my yard that the kids have called Lucy. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you're looking so beautiful this morning. Your leaves are turning yellow, and oh my god, all your trees are looking great." Like, I literally am talking to them out loud, not in my brain, but out loud.
Yeah.
And I'm like, people are absolutely insane, but it's so true. And it brings me almost to tears when I'm looking at it. And it was so beautiful this fall, and being so connected to it was very powerful.
Yeah.
So I totally understand that.
And I think it's so important to, there's all these memes. It's like, oh, once I get sober, I'll calm down. It's like that crazy guy with the pyramid behind him and the mustache, and he's looking completely insane. And it's like, no. And you think all these things are so insane, but what's actually insane is drinking poison for fun to the point where you can't create new memories. Literally. That is insane behavior. Sorry, it just is. And if you want to go talk to a tree, well, that seems mild compared to some of the shit I pulled.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah.
And the art and the act of noticing is so lost when you're in that cycle of abusing a substance like that, because you're just not able to be present and notice. Yeah. So doing things like noticing a season change is you're not losing time. You're not sitting in some dingy ass place getting hammered. Like, you're not doing all this like just really disruptive behavior, and you just start to notice all these beautiful things. And that's what's truly insanely beautiful about sobriety.
And how much time you're getting back. You talk about how much time
totally
into your life. And I think that's really beautiful.
The time thing is probably the thing that will always keep me sober, I will say, is I never want to waste any more time on this journey.
Yeah.
On this planet this time around. I don't want to waste a single second of it not remembering it.
Yeah.
So
it's a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should pay attention to it, all of us, more. Yeah,
totally.
So if you could go back in time to your high school self before you were really drinking and give her a piece of advice, what would it be? And would she have listened?
I would just say you really don't need anyone's approval. You really don't. I wouldn't have gone back and
told her not to drink.
No.
Yeah.
No, because none of it stems from the act of drinking. It was the wanting so desperately to be a part of something and to fit in and to be accepted and to be free, to feel unburdened. And I would just say, like, just be weird and be you, and everything will be totally fine.
I love the quote from Brene Brown. She says, the opposite of fitting in is belonging.
Yes, totally.
Because if you fit in, you've changed yourself to fit in.
Right.
True belonging is finding your people who accept you exactly how you are.
Right. Totally.
And I think that's a really beautiful statement.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish we could teach that to young girls more.
Yeah.
If you could describe your recovery journey as a movie or a book, what would the title be and why?
It's funny because I have a title, but then I have a real book and movie that it would actually be more like. The title would be Trainwreck, obviously. Like, it has to be. And I think about that movie and her relationship with men and all of these things. And I'm like, yeah, that
tracks
me. But that's my funny side of wanting to make a joke. But I really think the movie and book, Wild, about the journey through the PCT, the Pacific Crest Trail, and she was recovering from a lot of things. And just like her journey of one foot in front of the other, over and over and over again. And just walking and being so mad that nothing like huge is happening. Like, she thought she would have all these huge moments of like breakthrough moments on this trail. And then she was singing some stupid fucking song in her head. And she was like, I thought I was supposed to be having a breakthrough. That was totally me in early recovery. I'm like, shouldn't I be like having an epiphany with my life
every day?
Like, shouldn't this be like bigger than it is? Like, I'm like hoping like, and then
to be like a movie.
Yeah. And then I read that book and I read that book and I read that book. And then I watched the Reese Witherspoon adaptation movie of that book. And there's some much darker things and drug use and some things that obviously were not part of my journey. I will say a combination of train wreck, funny craziness, plus just that nature will heal all. It just takes time. Just notice, put one foot in front of the other, recall the memories and feel them. That's the hardest part about sobriety, is you'll just be sitting there and you'll think about something so disgustingly cringe that you did hammered, and it will just come to you and it makes you want to puke thinking about it, or something that you said or did that was just so not you. And those moments suck. They still suck. Having dreams where you drink and you wake up and you're suck.
Yeah.
Horribly. So just knowing that it just takes time and it's just one foot in front of the other.
Acceptance.
Yeah. Yep. Totally.
And what would be the theme song? What was the next one? If your journey had a theme song, what would it be?
It's going to be Taylor Swift, obviously. It's me. Hi. I'm the problem. It's me.
I'm the problem. It's me. Yeah.
It has to be that because, it's really easy in sobriety to blame many things. Childhood, atmosphere, an injury. Like there's so many things that people look to put in place a reason behind their behavior. And really, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. Yeah. You're the problem. Figure it out. Yeah. Figure it out. And it's not anyone else's responsibility to keep you sober. Yeah. It's your responsibility to stay sober. Your recovery is your responsibility. It's no one else's. There's no room for blame or complaint or defending. None of that matters. Right. Look forward. Yeah. Just do it.
And Stan and I have had many, many people in our lives, including his best friend that was drinking alcohol. It ended up taking his life in a pretty tragic way. And so he still tries to help as many people as he possibly can. And what we've come to understand in our family and in our these people that we come in contact with, employees, other things, is that you cannot help somebody who's not ready to help themselves.
Yep.
So this person who was obviously very distraught and just horribly self-destructive behavior.
Yeah.
He was so desperate to help him that it almost ruined everything else in his life, right?
Right.
And ultimately he wasn't able to.
Right.
And what a lesson there, right?
Yeah.
Is that and not to say that you shouldn't try to help people, but giving a hand up versus giving a hand out are two different things.
Yep.
And you have to be, so if you're dealing with somebody who's drinking, you policing and dumping out all their alcohol and forcing them to meetings and doing all the things is not helpful. No. You're not going to be successful unless they are ready to do it themselves.
Right.
And so that would be my only Al-Anon advice, coming away from that is just, protect yourself. Preserve yourself, and you want to be helpful and aligned with them to help them, but you can't save people unless they're willing to save themselves. You just can't.
There's nothing anyone would have or could have said or done that would have made me stop drinking until I was ready to stop drinking.
Yeah.
But I will say, once the seed is planted, it rarely goes away. Yeah. So if you're even considering it, I promise you, you'll never, ever, ever, ever wake up and say, I regret being sober. Never. It will never happen. Your life will change in ways you cannot imagine. You will be able to do everything that you've ever said you wanted to do. Like, the world opens up. You have so much time. I think that is something you don't understand. If you're someone who's like, I never have any time, I promise you stop drinking and you will wish time will go by a little faster sometimes. Because let me tell you, all you have what it feels like is time at the beginning, because you're feeling everything.
Right.
And then once you're through that, it opens up every possibility. Yeah. So just read The Naked Minds, listen to some podcast episodes. We have a couple with Brittany before this one to find the resources that work for you. Join a meeting. You can go online. Yeah. There's one specific for LGBTQ groups. There's so many things out there that didn't used to exist. They're out there now. There are so many NA options, 1 million now. There are resources. So if you're thinking about it, think about how hard it is. Take it one day at a time, which is an AA thing. And just find someone who can just listen to you talk. I will be that person.
Yeah.
Find someone that you can just be like, today really sucks. All I want is wine. And play the tape forward. I think that's the last thing I really want to say. I could ramble on forever and ever and ever. But the most helpful term in practice for me is playing the tape forward. If I am just sitting here thinking nonstop about wine, okay, then what? I drink the wine. No one knows. I drink the wine. No one knows. Then what? There's nothing there. What do you mean? Tomorrow I'll have a hangover. I'll be miserable. I'll be so sad. I ruined 2 years of sobriety over a glass of wine. Just play the tape forward. No matter how bad you want it in the moment, the next day you'll deeply regret it. Just play it forward. So.
If you're listening to this and you're sober curious, you're strong.
Yeah.
You're strong enough and you deserve it.
Totally.
We're here to encourage you.
Speaking of encouragement, sober, not boring, right? Sober, not boring. And we are going to have the biggest dance party.
So much fun.
So much fun. Check it out.
Dressed as you are, however you want, up, down, sideways, we don't care.
Don't care.
Casual, barefoot, high heels, makeup, no makeup. We don't care. Wear glam, don't wear glam. Just show up, have a good time.
Yeah.
Dance, unjudged.
Yep.
And just be in a space where you feel connected and seen.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, remember you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, so give us a follow.
Till then, be easy.
Love you.